Okay, so you've got owned retail and it's working in Soho. You've got one in South Congress and it's working. How many are you going to have? Are you going to have 350 to get to $350 million in revenue? Are you going to have 100?
Yeah.
Can you support 100 stores? You're not going to open up as many stores as Warby Parker has today, or Target has, or Walmart has. So generally, I think it's more marginal than people realize. Like, why don't more people have like sales associates post-purchase spend $500 on Outdoor Voices? I'm shocked that I never got a phone call being like, hey, how are you liking everything?
Give me at least a little bottle of water. Do something to make me remember the experience or want to come back to Aloe versus Lulu or Outdoor Voices.
Don't go to .com only. You want your brand to grow and have a presence, and you want the retail store to be like a billboard for your brand and a sales channel for your brand. A .com only isn't that. Guys, I'm super excited that this season's sponsor is Fulfill.io. I'm an early investor in Fulfill. I invested in about 7 years ago. Back then, the business was really nascent, and they were working with smaller direct-to-consumer businesses. Now they work with huge brands, including Nectar and Ridge, Hexclad, Caraway. In fact, another brand that I've invested in, Cadence. It's a fantastic ERP. The same thing that Klaviyo did to MailChimp in terms of building an email system made exclusively for our industry. Well, that's what Fulfill is doing to NetSuite. They're making an ERP built exclusively for our industry. It's fantastic. It is a single source of truth for your business. They offer everything from accounting to order management to inventory, warehouse management, EDI operations. Make sure you never miss a sale. Learn more at fulfill.io. Okay, Nick, season 8, episode 8. Lucky 88.
88. When I was a kid and I wasn't allowed to curse, I'd tell people they're an 88 because it sounds like idiot. So we are episode idiot today.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I thought you'd go like this.
Oh, no.
Do you know what that's from or not?
No, what is that from?
It's from Friends. That's how Ross would flick off his sister Monica when they were kids and not allowed to flick people off.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was. See, that would have been too up there for me. I gotta stick at the idiot level.
Yeah. Well, episode 88, or actually season 8, episode 8. Bunch of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about Nordstrom and how they're thinking about going private. I also read an article about Neiman Marcus that I thought was really interesting and applicable to a bunch of direct-to-consumer brands. I want to talk a little bit about the retail strategy and like the questions I get asked most often when people are heading into retail. And then a little bit about Amazon returns if we've got the time. Maybe we can start at Nordstrom going private. Would love to hear, your thoughts or what you've heard about it. I really haven't heard that.
Yeah, so I saw an article that said Nordstrom is considering going private, and I started looking it up after I spoke with a brand, and they said that their Nordstrom sales have gone way down. So they said, a few years ago, being in Nordstrom was kind of a big deal. It got them in. It was like the cosign look that it gives, the fact that Nordstrom is carrying your brand and has it in store was a great look, and it was driving sales. But now Nordstrom sales are down quite a bit, and it's such a small channel. It's more of a vanity thing than an actual sales thing now. And then I was just looking around like other stores and other retail brands. So they're trading at a 3.7 billion market cap. They're opening a lot more Nordstrom Rack locations. So they're opening 22 more Rack locations versus regular Nordstrom locations. Rack is like the outlet version of Nordstrom.
Yeah.
And then some other stuff. So Allbirds is closing 10 to 15 stores this year. Outdoor Voices closed all their stores. Purple has 60 retail stores, and they plan to slow down as well. So yeah, I was curious if you've heard anything, if you've seen anything around like not necessarily owned retail, but leveraging, retail through department stores or other channels. Like if you've seen a slowdown with department stores versus a Target, or even within the Target, Walmart, CVS type world. Then I remembered another conversation I had from Commerce Summit, and somebody was telling me that like as a D2C brand, they own their own store. They're doing anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 million per store per year, which actually feels like it reminds me of what a good cafe would do in New York. If they're doing $100K a month in revenue, they're completely profitable on that store. They've got their rent, their staff, et cetera, all covered. And then the last thought I had was all these D2C brands, like no matter what city you're in, LA, Soho, South Congress in Austin, somewhere in North Carolina, or somewhere in Nashville, Tennessee, all these D2C brands, like they kind of cluster together. Like you've got Warby next to Revolve, next to Berries, next to Soul Cycle,
Sure.
next to Outdoor Voices. And I thought, okay, who did the math here? Is this the blind leading the blind? Or did somebody do the math here and figured out that this was the location? So that was the premise for this thought.
I have so many different comments to that. One is I remember reading this book called, I forgot what it was called, but it was Sam Walton wrote it. He was the founder of Walmart. And he's like, when we were looking to like build new locations, he was actually a pilot. So he's like, I'd get into an airplane and then just fly around a city and find a good spot. And I was like looking for an intersection that was busy, but like, could support a huge lot and a lot of traffic. So it wasn't like too busy an intersection already. And so I'm not sure who found the location, but I feel like once you find a location, a bunch of copycats come in. Like a good example of that is, CVS and Walgreens. Wherever you see a CVS, you see a Walgreens. Another example of that is Chipotle and Cava. If you look at Cava, almost all of their locations are within a quarter mile of a Chipotle because they're just like, wherever this guy is probably a great location. And they're generally right. Going back to owned retail stores, so you talked about Allbirds and Outdoor Voices. I think of all the direct-to-consumer businesses that I think should do owned retail, I can understand like an apparel brand like Revolve or something, and then I can mostly understand Warby Parker. Warby Parker is getting into an industry that's like generally retail-based. Everyone wants to try on glasses. There's a fit thing. There's a look thing. There's like, there's also, it's also not like a t-shirt where you're like, you know what, this doesn't fit well. I'm not going to wear it that often. This is, George Costanza says you're buying a new face when you buy a new pair of glasses. And so you want to make sure that your face looks good because that's something you wear every day. So I understand Warby Parker getting into it. Everybody else, I'm always like, is this, how scalable is this strategy? Okay, so you've got owned retail and it's working in Soho. You've got one in South Congress and it's working. You've got one in Los Angeles. It's working. That's 3 stores doing $300,000 a month. You're talking about $4 million a year. That is peanuts when you're talking about, the size of a business like Allbirds or, maybe not Outdoor Voices. How many are you going to have? Are you going to have 350 to get to $350 million in revenue? Are you going to have 100?
Yeah.
Can you support 100 stores? Right now, all of your brands are like, it's accelerate. I think it's great, actually. Like I think it might even accelerate your online sales if you have a brick and mortar presence somewhere. But realistically, you're not going to open up as many stores as Sears had back in the day. You're not going to open up as many stores as Warby Parker has today, or Target has, or Walmart has. So generally, I think it's more marginal than people realize. Like early on, I think people make the mistake when they have a branded retail where they're like, wow, this store is working really well in Soho. If we can do this 40 times over, we'll do 40x, we'll do $40 million in revenue. But that doesn't happen. Like there aren't 40 locations like Soho in Manhattan or 40 locations like, Abbot Kinney in Venice. And so it just gets way tougher. And then what also gets tough is your retail staff it's easy to manage when you need 5 people or 10 people.
I've heard this is one of the hardest things ever because the churn is so high.
Of course. Yeah. Like, I used to work at, my parents owned gas stations. You know how hard it is to hire employees at gas stations or how hard it is. One of the things I'd always think about, like while I despise most 3PLs, I respect that one of the things that's really hard for them is to have staff and scale their staff up and down for Black Friday. How are you going to scale your staff up and down for Black Friday? What happens when there's a fight, when 2 employees fight? What happens when you're paying somebody, $18 an hour and someone offers them $21 and 2 people quit the same day? They don't give you 2 weeks notice and they're supposed to open up the store tomorrow. Who's going to open up that store? The CEO of, Warby Parker isn't going to go and open up a store. And so I think it's really, really difficult. And I'm not as a huge fan of branded retail unless there's a compelling case for it. I think for Warby Parker there is. I think for Revolve there can be. I think for Aloe there may be as well. But I think for most people, it absolutely does not make sense. I don't think it did for Allbirds.
I think for a lot of the brands, even like that are selling bed sheets, blankets, pillows, mattresses, like I feel maybe mattresses, but like does Brooklinen need to have a store? I feel like, I don't know. I can't imagine that there's going to be, 55 Brooklinen locations across the country. Maybe there's one as kind of like a showroom and a hat tip to the brand. And even in that case, like my question is, does that even come out? Is that a sales channel or is that just a marketing budget activation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure what it is, and it could be a marketing budget activation, and it could be a sales channel. And you're like, you know what? We have 5 of these. They're not a distraction somehow, and they're generating $7.5 million a year in revenue. Okay, I get it.
That's
And
yeah,
they're probably giving you another $2.5 million lift when it comes to your direct to consumer site. Okay, I got you. I got it. You're getting $10 million from this. But like at some point, it's not that important if you're Brooklyn and doing 350 million. I don't know if Brooklyn is doing 350, but $350 million a year. And
right.
so, I think you can think about it and be like, this is a small segment when I've tapped out a lot of other channels, but this isn't going to be something that gets me to $75 million a year in a way that, unless it becomes my singular focus, unless management really focuses on it in a way
Right.
that probably isn't great for the business because there's better things to focus on.
100%. At Native, did you guys ever consider like pop-ups or owned retail, or was it just
I
always
considered
like wholesale?
pop-ups. No. I considered pop-ups for like a fraction of a second. And then I was like, you know what? I worked at a gas station and I remember how hard it was to hire employees. My parents would always, we had this one employee. God, it was so fun. I've got a good story if we got like 10 seconds about it.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. He was like a really loyal employee, but a somewhat incompetent employee. And there was this great story that my mother told me. I remember she's like, the RJ Reynolds tobacco representative came in and set up a little boot like counter at our store, and they're like, anyone who's trying to buy a pack of Marlboro cigarettes, we're going to offer them 4 free packs of Camel. That's how we're going to get people to switch. If you come into our store and try and buy a pack of Marlboro cigarettes, we'll offer you 4 free packs of Camel. In the same way that if you were
Wow.
trying to buy Pepsi, they'd offer you 4 free cans of Coca-Cola instead to try and get you to switch. So my mom sent this. I had our employee come in. She's like, look, come in, ask for a pack of Marlboro. He was a smoker and he already smoked Marlboro, this guy. And
Wow.
she's like, come in, ask for a pack of Marlboro and get 4 free packs of Camel. It's worth $10. Just come and do it on your day off. It's your day off. Come in and do it. So this guy comes in and he goes, I want to buy a pack of Camel cigarettes. And my mom is like, you fucking idiot. This woman will give you 4, like, you smoke Marlboro already. If you ask for Marlboro, this woman will give you 4 free packs of Camel. And you fucking came in and asked for Camel. Are you fucking idiot? She didn't say it like that. But I remember how hard it was to hire employees. So realistically, we weren't too serious about branded retail or even pop-ups.
Did you ever look at like something like Leap Retail where it's like fully outsourced in that sense? You don't even have to worry about the staffing or any of that.
Yeah, we didn't, and generally, I'm not like, I don't want to fully outsource something. Like
Yeah.
outsourcing something generally doesn't get you really good results. Like, what Apple doesn't do? They're like, let's outsource manufacturing of the iPhone; it'll be fine. They're
Mhm.
like, we are really careful about this because our brand is like rests on this iPhone, and we want to make it great. And one of the examples I always hear is people sampling at Costco. This is a great example, actually. Like if you have a Costco employee handing out your samples, you'll go through like, let's give you an example of Gatorade. You'll go through 2 cases of Gatorade or 3 cases of Gatorade because people will come and just get the Gatorade, but you won't sell any. People will just take samples and they'll walk away. If you have your own employee at the Costco giving out the samples, that's where you actually get a lot of success because then you have your employees selling that product. You're like, if you buy Gatorade, it's awesome. Michael Jordan uses it. It was invented at the University of Florida to help athletes recuperate. Gatorade is amazing. The flavors are great. It's got electrolytes. If you just have that Costco person handing out the sample of Gatorade, they're just going to be like, "Here's the sample. Get the fuck out of here." We don't stand in front of me. And so you really like. I'm not a big fan of letting outsourcing that kind of stuff. I think if you were going to do that really well, you can't outsource it.
Agreed.
But I think this is a yeah. So I think this is a great. Have any of your like at Hint? Did you guys try and think about owned retail? You
Yeah.
guys
Well,
had those stores in front of your office.
yeah, that was a total failure. That was like a marketing activation type thing that was more of the founder wanted to do it, but it made no financial sense at all. Um, and I don't think I mean, we probably sold like less than $100 a day of water out of that thing. So it was not really like, not really worth it. They ended up, I think, closing down all of those places on Union Street and actually moving to an office finally. But I mean, there was always the thought of it, but never really in a way where it was like a serious thought. It was just kind of like a thought out loud. What was more interesting was activations at like music festivals, for example, just because the brand or the product felt a lot more, I don't know, synchronous with the environment that it was in. People are on if they're high and they come drink hint water, it's like the most magical experience in the world. And so that worked really well. And also it's just like people are more playful or kind of like their guard is down. But I don't think, I mean, maybe, but like I could see a pop-up just being a straight marketing thing. I can't imagine for somebody like Hint, a pop-up is actually going to make real money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pop-up or pop-ups are by definition, I feel like marketing activations. I think owned retail, you should often think of as marketing activations as well. Although I have seen, like, I heard that Outdoor Voices, it was really successful for Outdoor Voices pre-pandemic. Obviously they've closed all their stores.
I feel today, like I could see that with AOV. Like I remember back in the day, House, that aperitif, whenever they'd do like in-person events, they would turn a profit there.
Yeah.
But then, and Outdoor Voices I could see, or like if Bonobos did a pop-up, I could see how they would turn a profit.
Yeah.
But something with such low AOV, or especially where like, if you go buy a deodorant, you're not buying like 7, you're probably buying like 1 or 2. With Hint, you're probably buying like 3 bottles max. So maybe your total's $10.
Yeah.
It's hard to justify that.
Amazing. That's such a great segue into 2 different things I want to talk about. Let me talk about the Neiman Marcus one first. So I read this article about Neiman Marcus, and, I think everyone's been struggling, like all these big retailers have been struggling, including Neiman Marcus. So, they said that the CEO, or it was some report that said Neiman Marcus customers who buy with the help of a sales associate spend X times more than those who don't. Do you want to guess what X is?
Just by knowing my guy at Nordstrom, I would say 1,000 times more, 100, and probably, let's say like, I realistically, 50 times more.
It was 12 times more. If you get a sales associate, you will spend 12x what you will if you don't get a sales associate. That is an insane amount of difference.
Yeah, that's pretty huge.
Well, like, what does your sales associate do for you that, like, you spend so much more as a result?
So if I text him and I'm like, hey, like I said, I have a trip to Hawaii, he will basically say, all right, come in Saturday at 3:00. As soon as I get there, there's a massive dressing room full of shirts, pants, shorts, whatever. And all he's having me do is take this on, take this off, put this on, take this off. Yeah. Here's 1 outfit, here's 2 outfits, here's 3 outfits. And by the end, you've spent an hour trying things on, and then you got this massive bill where you're just like, hold us, how did this come out?
Yeah.
Whereas if I was shopping on my own, I'd probably be like, all right, let me get a couple shirts, and that's all I need. And then maybe I'll go try them on. Maybe you take 5 shirts to the dressing room and you end up buying 2 or 3. But here it's like you go to a dressing room, this guy already kind of knows the style you're into. Yeah. And so he has you try on 15 shirts, and out of that, you end up buying 10.
This is so, this goes back to the conversation we had on last week's podcast, which is, why don't more people have like sales associates post-purchase to be like, if I were Aloe, like if I just spent I'd spend $500 on Outdoor Voices. I'm shocked that I never got a phone call being like, hey, how are you liking everything? Oh, what was your favorite piece? Would you like that? Would you be interested in a different color?
Yeah, like a great example here is like, so there's a couple things that I wanted to buy, but I'm like, you know what? Like the bill's already high. I don't need this pair of jeans. And then he texted me 2 weeks later. He's like, hey, this pair of jeans is 50% off. You know, if they came to you and they're like, you just spent $500. Also, you seem to love these shirts. You bought 4. We're now running a deal. You buy 4, you get half off. I mean, I feel like that's just a layup. There's no customer acquisition cost either.
Yeah. If I learned anything from The Office, it was that it's cheaper to, retain an existing customer than it is to acquire a new customer. I don't understand why nobody is doing this. Like if I were Aloe Yoga, I'd be doing this and be like, you just spent $1,000. You like these yoga pants so much. We have a new color. We have this new look. If I were Lululemon, I'd be doing this too. Like, Lululemon's
and I feel like too, it doesn't even have to be crazy. It's like if you walk into Aloe and you bring something to the checkout, they make you type your email in to find your customer profile on the Shopify iPad. If they see you've spent over $1,000 in the last 12 months, give me at least a little bottle of water, do something to make me remember the experience or want to come back to Aloe versus Lulu or Outdoor Voices.
Yeah. Or give me like a ribbon that says VIP and I can just put it on my shirt. And it looks awesome.
Even give me a high five. Just remember my name.
That's right. Yeah.
The bar is so low.
The bar is really low. I think the post-purchase phone call is shockingly not used enough for brands that can do high AOV. I don't think I ever worked at like Native, but like True Classic. I probably spent $500 on True Classic, maybe $1,000 on True Classic at this point. Why don't they call me and be like, hey, Moiz, every single day you wear the same joggers of True Classics. We launched a new color. Get your ass in this new color. Like, like just a text would be amazing. And I think that I'm shocked that people haven't done that yet. And I think if all the brands I just mentioned, I think True Classic would be the ones to adopt that first, believe it or not.
Anyway, dude, as you were saying it, I was like, they're going to hear this and they're going to do it. Like they're going to assign somebody to just do this.
Yes. Yeah, I think they will as well. Hey guys, I'm super excited that this season's sponsor is Fulfill.io. I invested $500,000 in Fulfill about 7 years ago. Back then, the business was really a nascent ERP. Today, they've built out an entire set of features to become a single source of truth. They can do full operations, accounting, order management, inventory, warehouse management, EDI operations. It's really incredible. They've got huge businesses working with Fulfill, Ridge, Hexclad, Caraway, another business I invested in called Cadence. The best part about Fulfill is how hands-on they are. It's one of those founder-led businesses where the founder is still deep in the code and deep in the product. If you work with something like NetSuite, it might take you a year, 2 years. I've seen 5 years to get NetSuite implemented. That will not happen with Fulfill. Fulfill implementations take 5 weeks. It's not a traditional ERP. It's a 21st century ERP. And the same thing that Klaviyo did to MailChimp in terms of creating an email system built specifically for our industry. Well, that's what Fulfill is doing to ERPs. Go check them out at fulfill.io. Here's a couple other interesting things that I thought when I read the Neiman Marcus article, which was for men's fashion, it used to be sunglasses were the gateway drug into men's fashion. That would be the place where men bought their first Prada or Gucci product. Now it's sneakers. Sneakers are where men get into men's fashion, which I thought was really interesting. And the other thing was the top 2% of its Neiman Marcus's top 2% of their customers. How much do you think they spend per year at Neiman Marcus?
Top 2%?
Yeah.
Probably like $25,000 a year.
You're almost exactly spot on. $27,000 a year. They drive 40% of sales. I was reading this and I was like, you know what? I never did a good job of this in native as well. But if I were a big brand like Aloe or, True Classic or Cuts or, Hexclad, I'd be like, who are the guys who are spending north of $2,000? Like, let's say my average order is $500. Who is spending $10,000? Okay, how do I make this special? How do I make this brand special? Like, email, you have a customer service problem, you email the CEO. You have, some issue, like you new drops, you call us. We text you and say, hey, we just launched something new. Do you want to check it out? You want to come to the Aloe store? We're going to have, we're open we're going to have the store open 30 minutes early on Sunday. We open at 10 and we're opening at 9:30 for you. How much does that cost?
It's such
Nothing.
An easy idea. Yeah, exactly.
And like you have the whole Aloe store to yourself. A bunch of people, like I remember buying a salad at Mendo Farms once, and I was the first customer of the day, and everyone applauded. They're like first customer. They rang a bell and everyone applauded. I still remember that. This person should come in at 9:30. The entire store should applaud, and it should be Nick. You are our fucking best customer. Here's a hat that says VIP customer. Let me show you what we dropped that's new here.
100% agree. There's actually one clothing brand that I know of that does a really good job of this called Mixology. It's a Northeastern-based clothing brand, but they have such a tight-knit community. Like all the managers in the stores and the sales associates in the stores have like direct relationships with the moms and the girls who come in and shop. And when there's something they know aligns with the style of the customer they want, they immediately just text them. And they say, hey, this is something we think you might like. Or they just bring them back into the store based off that personal relationship. The only other company I can think of that does this is like Apple. If I go spend, $4,000 at Apple, you get a phone call saying, do you want to sign up for the business program? We can save you money. And then you get some sort of an ongoing rep, but that's about it. Other than that, it's like maybe it's like other tech companies, but I think the only common variable is they already have a call center. So they just basically put this on the existing call center. And it's still very different than like what we're talking about, which is that VIP route.
Yeah, and like the sales route, which is, I think Postscript is doing this a great job of this pre-purchase from everyone I talked to that they've, Jones. I think it was Jones Road Beauty that they talked to. I think it was True Classic. I think they've worked with a bunch of these guys. Dr. Squatch, yeah. I'm shocked that more brands aren't doing this post-purchase where there's so many dollars on the table. And it's so valuable. Okay, let's shift over into retail strategy, which was, people ask me all the time about like how to think about retail strategy. A couple of things that I always say is, look, we never got into retail until we sold the business. And after we sold the business, we got into retail. But that's pretty intentional. Like, Target reached out to us, Costco reached out to us, Whole Foods and 10 other brands to try and get native into their stores. And we said no to everybody. And that was really intentional. But whenever I talk to people about retail, here are the few things I always say. I say one is never go .com only. People will be like, oh, we're just going to go to target.com first and they're going to see how sales are. And then they might bring us into store. We're going to go to Nordstrom.com. One of the brands I invested in, they're like, Nordstrom's like, they want to put them on the .com and we drop ship. And I was like, that's terrible. Like, you're basically going to create all the demand. They're going to buy your search term. They're going to check out on Nordstrom. Right. They might get some loyalty points. They're going to have you drop ship and they take half your margin. Like, that is the worst.
Yeah. And you deal with customer service and returns.
That's right. Yes. Don't go to .com only. Like, you want your brand to grow and have a presence, and you want the retail store to be like a billboard for your brand and a sales channel for your brand. A .com only isn't that, especially Target.com. Like, I respect Target.com and I love Target.com, but if you ask the people who work at Target, most of their sales are happening. They have 1,800 brick and mortar stores for a reason, because the sales are happening in brick and mortar stores and not .com.
Do you know the percentage split between .com versus in-store?
I don't know this percentage split. I can tell you for native, it was very small. For other brands that I'm an investor in, it's up to 20%. So it's actually not nothing. Like, I've seen brands sell 20% of their sales on Target.com through the Target channel.
And is that's like recently after they've decided to really scale up e-commerce, or that was even before?
That was a big brand doing a healthy 8 figures a year, walked into Target and is doing 20% of their sales on Target.com.
Wow.
That's within the past year. That's within the past, not even year, past several months. So yeah, it's absolutely not nothing. The other thing I say is your first retail will really define you. So you want to be careful about this. Like, if your first retailer is Bass Pro Shops, you are now going to be like that's just a hard thing to overcome, because now you're a specialty brand and not a mainstream brand. And the other thing is, every other store is going to start looking at the sales data from that store. It's not like, if I want to find out the sales data of Hint at Target, I could buy that data from Nielsen. That data is available for sale. So if my brand starts selling at Target and doesn't do well, everybody knows. It's not like it's a secret. It's not like direct to consumer where everyone doesn't know. Everyone knows here. Like, if it doesn't do well at CVS, who's not going to pick me up? Walgreens. They're going to say, you're barely selling at CVS. Why would we take you? If it's barely selling at Target, who's not going to take you? Everybody else, because they're like, you can barely move this product in brick and mortar stores. Your first retailer will define you. And so you really need to kick off a really strong retailer, one that aligns with your brand, one that you're going to have a lot of success with. You don't want to sell Blue Nile jewelry at Walmart, because they're just not going to turn there. You want to sell it at a store. You want to sell it at Zales. You want to make sure that the retailer is aligned with the brand, that the customer is aligned with the brand, that the demographic is aligned with the brand. Like, you don't want to go into Walmarts that have low income area zip codes if you're selling a really expensive product where competitors are cheaper.
100% agreed. Yeah, I've also heard too, like if you've got like I remember at Hint, we would only put cherry, blackberry, watermelon, pineapple on the retail shelf, because if pear was there and pear didn't move specifically, they would say Hint isn't moving. And then they would lessen the shelf space versus swapping that out for another flavor that's moving, or just take the brand away altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, what you need is velocity. Your SKUs have to move. And the way the retailers think about this is they call them red lines, where they're like, you have to sell a certain number of units per SKU, per store, per week. So if I've got 5 different scents of native or 5 different flavors of Hint, I'm just going to give I'm going to say you have to sell at least one of each of those scents per store per week. If you're not selling one, if you're selling 0.8 units per week, we might remove you. We might swap you out for a different scent. We might remove you entirely. If you're doing more, we might give you more facings. And that, if anyone remembers what happened to Native, we started at some stores with 3 facings. Today, you go to Target. I'm sorry,
it's half
Target
the aisle.
with 3 facings. Today, it's 25 facings, because those 3 sold really quickly. Our coconut and vanilla, this is public information because you could buy it, was selling something like 18 units per store per week. like
Wow.
it was, it was virtually 10x the amount that the store wanted and the red line wanted, and that's how we got more facings. And so you want to kick off, you care about velocity a lot, and you also want to kick off really strong because you want the sales right, like you want sales right out of the gate. One, the buyer will love you, and two
Right.
months from now, the person who started buying your product may be buying them again. If you're selling dishwasher pods, or you're selling deodorant, or you're selling hint water, someone who starts buying today can repeat again 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. And so you want that
Yep.
sales velocity right out of the gate. And the way I think about doing that is you should have a lot of promotions right out of the gate. Here's a bunch of things that you can do or you should try and push to do. One is obviously end cap. I always thought end cap was the biggest lever you could pull. It's a billboard that's for your brand only saying, hey, go buy this. At stores like Target and Walmart, those main aisles that have end caps have 10x the traffic than the smaller aisles that only have deodorant. So if you can get an end cap, you're going to see, you're going to get 10x the eyeballs on the main aisle as opposed to the smaller aisles. So end cap.
And
is
how
the
do you pay
biggest
for
lever.
that?
You don't have to pay for it, actually. You can negotiate. So I'm sure some people have to pay for it and have slotting fees. If you're a brand that's aligned with Target and you're doing really well, they're going to want it. It's good for the buyer too. They don't want to be like, what we don't want is you on the end cap, because they're like, if I put secret, they'll sell a little bit more. If I put native, they'll sell way better, and I'll make more money too.
Right.
So native is better for everybody. So there will be some brands that have to pay slotting fees. Not all brands will have to pay slotting fees. It just depends on your brand and the velocity that you have. The second one is in-store signage, like on the signs on the in the aisle themselves on the shelves. It's called on-shelf signage, actually, not in-store signage. Like it'll say, new brand, made in the United States, aluminum free. Like those are the things that we would try and say. Over 5,000 5-star reviews. Basically, on the shelf, when you're walking down the deodorant aisle, you want people to look at your brand, even though it might not be the brand that they generally gear towards, because it's got some sort of signage right on the shelf. And so I think people should play for that.
What are some of the best phrases you can put there? So
good question.
Like even for native, what were some of the best ones? I assume Brown Founder was not your first choice there.
Show me the money, baby. It was the sign that we put. No, we put over 5,000 or over 10,000 5-star reviews. I forgot how many reviews we had. We put that literally everywhere. And I think we were maybe the first to do that in stores, literally on everything. I was ready to staple it to my head. That really worked because it built a lot of trust. People are like, what is this brand? Is it going to be good? And if you can write over 5,000, you can just write a lot of reviews. People are like, okay, I trust it, because people trust reviews. The other things I think about are like a Bada deal, basically Rakuten deals. Like, how can you use third parties? Can you leverage third parties to drive in-store velocity? Target has this thing called a red card. You can offer sales on red cards. Like, people will go into Target and open up an app for their Target credit card or Target app, and they'll look at deals on the app. And so you can play for, red card deals as well. And the final thing I thought of is, this didn't apply to us, but it applied to Hint, for instance, is can you stand at the front of the store and sample? Can you be at the front of Whole Foods? Can you be at the front of Erewhon, having someone really excited about your product, saying, come buy this, it's fucking awesome. Let me tell you why it's great.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. In the okay, so one question I have is like, everybody talks about planograms. You want to get into the planogram and you want to get in at a time where you can drive velocity. How does that work? Like, if you're a brand, how do you think about whether you can actually hit that per store per week? And how do you get into the planogram? Like, is that something different than otherwise just going to a broker who says they can get you into Target?
Number 2 is no, but for big CPG, the answer is yes. Like, big CPG makes it different. Like, big CPG goes to Target and they'll be like, here's a planogram we propose for your entire deodorant aisle. Here's where Secret will sit. Let's say it's P&G. Here's where Secret will sit, and here's also where Dove will sit, which is surprising because you're sort of saying this is where we think you should put our competitors. And if you say I think you should put one shelf of, or like one facing of Dove all the way at the bottom, obviously your planogram has no credibility. So you actually have to be like pretty fair there. And here's where other brands, I would have 14 other brands, and this is where they would sit. And so
they would show you everything.
That's
like
how
you would see where your competitors are going.
That's what you would propose. You would go to Target and you'd propose it. And they were,
Okay.
you have no idea what they're going to do, but you're like, this is what I propose your planogram is for next year. And every category generally has two different resets, one hard reset, one soft reset. A hard reset is like, we're ready to change everything. A soft reset is hint peach isn't selling. Maybe we'll swap it out with another hint flavor. And so the soft resets for the deodorant category, and I think most others, happen in the fall. The hard resets are usually in the winter, like, January, February, March is when they're ready to change everything. August, September, October is when they'll be like, this scent isn't selling. Should we swap it out? This flavor isn't selling. Should we swap it out? This toothpaste SKU isn't selling. Should we swap it out? And so, you sort of plan for that as well. And, when you think about sales, like, I think you should not think about sales velocity when you're selling in. When you're selling in, you should be like, my goal is to get this product in. If I get it in, and then I got to think about how do I make sure it turns. And, there's classic things that you can do to make sure it turns as well, which is, we talked about end cap and signage and red store and like red card deals, but also send an email to your customers. Go get them to purchase at the brick and mortar store. Your best flavor is black cherry. Great. You know what we're sold out of for a few weeks? Black cherry on our site. Go to Target and buy it. Put a little banner at the top of your page saying now available to Target with a map showing the Targets that you're in. If you're not in every store, here are the stores that we are in. Send out text messages saying, hey, we're now available in Target. Go shop at Target. Target will love that. You'll have more velocity. There, like, that's another way that's a lever that you can pull internally to go drive sales. Send an email to all of your existing customers saying, here's a $5 coupon for my product at Target. Go buy it. Run a bunch of promotions right out of the gate at Target saying, hey, I buy one, get the next one 25% off.
Yeah. And on those, so one thought I've had is like from a marketing standpoint, the Girl Scouts collab that Native did or the Baked by Melissa collab, were those in the thought of, okay, this is going to drive a ton of people to go into the store and drive sell through in the store? Or is this like, this is going to get people who have thought about Native over the fence? Like, what was the thinking behind that as it related to retail? Because they had massive displays in Target anytime Native has a collab.
So I will say that I wasn't there, so I'm only guessing at this, and it wasn't my decision. I'm not the CEO of that brand any longer, and so I would guess and say the second, which in fact, even more than the second, it's something else. I think the first is like, we're not like, no one's going to go to the store being like, I fucking love Baked by Melissa cupcakes. I've been looking for those my entire life. I'm in Oklahoma City. Let me go to Target and buy Baked by Melissa deodorants. I'm not saying that's impossible, but that's not going to drive enough turn to get end caps at 1,800 stores. I think part of it is probably, yes, I was considering it. This is an interesting scent. Let me go buy this. I think that's interesting. But I think most of it, the third thing, which is unsaid, which is you already have a bunch of scents. You love cupcakes. Let us sell you another scent. Let us pantry load you. This is a $12 product. Look, I think that's the difference between a $12 product and a $75 product. $75 product, I can't just keep selling you the same thing over and over again. This is a product that's like a fragrance. You run out of all of your perfumes before you buy another perfume. You don't need to run out of this before you buy another one. One guy once told me Native isn't a deodorant business, it's a scent business. And he's not entirely wrong. I don't think he's entirely right, but he's not entirely wrong. You have 7 of these, buy an 8th one. Like that's what I think the mentality was. That was the mentality of launching seasonal scents in the first place, which was, you know what? You like cucumber. I like cucumber too, but now it's fall and maybe we want to smell like, apple cider for 2 days. How about we sell you something that'll make you happy and smell like that for, 2 weeks? And so I think that's really what it was.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, great. I think that's a wrap for this episode. I was hoping to get into Amazon returns and sort of what happens. And I talked to this guy who worked at Amazon, but maybe we'll save that for next episode. This was fantastic. I really appreciate thanks for your time.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah,
I feel like I learned so much about retail.
This was awesome. Okay, really appreciate it. Please join us for, season 8, episode 9, 89, coming up pretty soon.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise in CPG, retail, and e-commerce.
And if you enjoyed this episode, then why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on.